Hello, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily. And actually, Happy Children's Day
Yes, that's for those who,
for everybody, for whoever.
no, for those who
At
still
heart.
have parents. No,
Yeah.
Tony, for instance, says that
To-
as far as you don't have parents, you are no longer a child. But
Oh boy!
I
Can the
don't
camera
know.
pan to his face? Let's see
I
who's the
don't know.
culprit.
I don't know where he got that idea from, but talking, seriously, Chamberlain, and for everyone who has concerns about, all the things that are happening in the country, it's as a result of things that we ought to have done that we haven't done. If some of the issues we are addressing today have been addressed 20 years ago, I bet we won't be where we are now. And the children who were born 1999, today, ordinarily, they should have finished university by now. This is 21 years since that time, going to 22 years now. Now, there are many things that they shouldn't be contending with that they are contending with as we speak. One of them is majorly, of course, this insecurity issue. The other one is unemployment that is also fueling insecurity. There is a lot of inequality all over the place. There's something you raised some weeks ago or some months ago now when we were talking about, a number of issues. You talked about the Child Rights Act and about the fact that we needed to replicate these laws, the Child Rights Act, and domesticate them in different states. I don't know if we have all 36, even up to 20 states that have been able to domesticate the Child Rights Act in Nigeria. And for God's sake, Nigeria is a signatory to it. Is Nigeria any different from the states in Nigeria, in the country, for instance, that have not domesticated these laws? There's something that I often say. The federal government has citizens. It is the states that have indigents and residents in the states. The federal government cannot legislate certain things outside of what the states can do. So these things are as a result of the things that we have not done in the past. So the question that I'm asking now is, given the outstanding, given the huge gaps of so many things that we haven't discussed, the National Security Summit is being, championed by the House of Representatives now, and the constitutional review is going on across, the several geopolitical zones. The question I'm asking is, are we addressing these issues futuristically to ensure that we protect the rights of the children now as opposed to ever? Because if we do not do this now, it's in another 20 years, I don't know if we're still not going to be where we are or even worse. And it's a serious concern, Chamberlain. Don't you think so?
Well,
Let me make it a little worse. I'm sorry. Let me make it a little worse. If we don't address some of these issues, some of the children today who are 5 years old today, in another 20 years will be how old? 25 years old. Some of them are going to be doing what, really? Political thugs? Are they going to be, exactly what kind of life do we have planned out for them? I review the education policy, and I see that it doesn't really have a goal for addressing anything nationalistically. I look at the national health policy, and I'm wondering, how do we protect the children's rights? Look at the Marriage Act, look at the Police Act, look at the Child Rights Act, look at the Constitution. For God's sake, are we really building forward? Are we building futuristically or just protecting the state?
well, sometimes it appears as if these kind of days, I don't know, does it come, is there ever a right or wrong time? Because even right now, we all know what the country, parents themselves are grappling with. They're battered, almost on every side. They're grappling with one huge challenge or the other. The rat race to make ends meet.
Absolutely.
Such that they get consumed or subsumed without having adequate time to have a look at what children actually require, as much as they may try. And so circumstances in society sometimes make it, very hard. And things that you never thought you'll associate with parents about how they treat their children, it's huge. And on a broader scale, if you look back, you ask yourself, in the last 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years of the life of this country? Can someone tell me which particular policy this country has deliberately made to the benefit of the child or children?
This is not the first time you are asking this question.
So that you just look. And you look at society and you ask yourself, there's certain things you look out for and you feel, oh, okay, society is actually conscious of this. Okay, they're conscious of that. But you know how it is with the composition of the body. You can't say the finger is much more important than the toe. So wait until you lose one of the toes, then you know how important it is. Because, some people go from certain climes, maybe in this part of our world, and then get to other climes, and they do certain things they think it's normal here, over there, and people tell them, excuse me, what do you think you're doing? This is not allowed for the children. And it just shows you how much work needs to be done for individuals. Even those who think, yeah, I think I'm a little bit above board. And then you know that you've been a one-eyed man in the land of the blind. So it is huge. We can't talk about education, which is part of the theme for Children's Day this year. And there's just so many things. Just so many.
Too many things.
But if you could start, they say if you want to make someone do something, make it easy for them to do it. Maybe as parents, as also all in society, the way we relate with children, maybe we'll start from there.
Start from there.
And see what kind of impact we'll make.
Well, we call it a celebration. Is it a celebration or a recognition?
There you go.
Markwe?
Well, I think it's a celebration, gentlemen. Good morning, Nigerians, and a happy Children's Day to all the children of Nigeria. Interestingly, this day is just celebrated in Nigeria. There's the general UN recognized day celebrated sometime in November, but today's Children's Day is celebrated, it's a day set aside by the Nigerian government to celebrate Nigerian children. So I think maybe that's something to celebrate, at least, that we have thought about it in the past and decided that, our children deserved a day to themselves. And sometimes I like to say, well, happy Children's Day to the child in your heart, because we all must never lose that essence of being children, of being childlike, that curiosity in our hearts that leads us to explore and aspire to greater things. Nonetheless, it's about the children who are children in form and at heart, and in every way we can define who children are. And gentlemen, the conversation which you've already started as to what we're really doing by our children is extremely important. When we think of the fact that we haven't really evolved into a policy, the desires that we have culturally, because I know that in every Nigerian setting, when a child is welcomed into the world, it's such a great thing of joy. You just have to see. I have experienced it. I've seen people I don't even know congratulating me over the birth of a child. And I think that's usually what happens in our culture. However, how have we been able to translate that into a state policy in such a way that the state celebrates the birth of Nigerian children and ensures that at least for the period of their childhood, they feel that entity called the Nigerian state in their lives? Is it in the area of education? There are big question marks there. It would seem that government has left it largely to the private sector. And in the places where you have seen some government intervention, it's not been as impressive as it ought to be. Well, we've seen some attempts at reversal, especially when we look at the school feeding program, which was promulgated by the federal government to ensure that more children enroll in schools. However, I think that program is due for a review, especially after what transpired with COVID. We saw how our children were left at home, and a lot of them had to now resort to learning online or learning through radio and what have you, which was not exactly as effective. But there are a number of people who are coming up with amazing things. You never can tell what can come out when you really think about our children and put their future first. So today, let us celebrate the Nigerian child. Wherever it is you find yourself, if you're listening to us and you know of a child around you whom you can do something special for, it doesn't have to be related to you by any means or ways, but extend some kindness to the Nigerian child today. And who knows, maybe in your line of work, if you do think about it, think about ways that you can ensure that, you know, the average Nigerian child can look forward to a future. There was something amazing I saw recently. A young man who went somewhere and saw destitute children who were not in school, and he thought up a most innovative way, himself and his friends, and, you know, they have done something wonderful. I think we had that report even here on Channels Television. They've gotten international recognition just from thinking about what could be done to better the lives of the average Nigerian child. Out of that came wonderful things. So how much more those who are saddled with the responsibility of thinking for us all and also thinking for the Nigerian child? We urge our leaders that today, spare a thought, aside the parties, if any will happen now, because we're being told of COVID. Normally, we'll know that state governments will at least do some sort of, you know, celebration for children. But, you know, might now rely on COVID as an excuse. But aside whatever else is done today, let's think long term for these children. Let's think that, you know, these are the people who will actually become the leaders of tomorrow, the youths of tomorrow who will become the leaders of the future. And let us do all that we have in our power to ensure that they get a better life. Gentlemen.
Yeah, very much so. So, good one. All right, let's see how the dailies reflect developments today. So,
Yep. Seems to have looked in the crystal ball and saying exactly what we're talking about this morning. The Leadership newspaper is also celebrating children today. Leadership Children's Day Special Edition, that's what they call it. And guess what the focus is? COVID-19. So it really, you know, tailors with lines up with what Mapwe closed with. COVID-19. Our COVID-19 experience, Nigerian children shared deep emotional stories with the world. That's pretty much saying, look, while you think about us, listen to us as well. You know, pretty much what the Oni of Ife said yesterday, you know, at that security summit as the lead of the paper. And of course, right under the nameplate, Constitution Review, Restructuring, Devolution of Powers, State Police, Top Public Hearing. That's right there, and under the whole page, 110 confirmed dead in Kebbi, Niger boat mishap. That story is on page 4 of the Leadership newspaper.
Okay, take a look at Nigerian Tribune next. They continue in that theme. At Zonal Constitution Review, return to 1963 Constitution, State Police, Fiscal Federalism dominate. So, there you go. Look at the highlights. Akeredolu wants return to 1963 Constitution. Northern Kaduna wants separate states. Sanwo-Olu wants special status for Lagos, Fiscal Federalism, State Police. Disagreement between Presidency and National Assembly truncated 7th Assembly's Constitution Review, ascribed to Okawa. Tambuwal canvasses restructuring. Constitution Review only cannot guarantee peace, Lalong, and it goes on. But then at the bottom, Nolge, that's the local government, wants INEC to conduct LG polls. Oh dear, oh dear. They know what they're going through.
That's a little ironic, isn't it? So
yeah.
On the one hand,
I'll tell you,
we want the states to have more
and
powers.
now you still want to make it unitary? Huge challenges right there.
I don't know.
And then you see Buhari says insecurity affecting his development plans. Okay, and but you see Lawan, Bajabiamila, Sultan, Oni, others express concern over growing insecurity. So there you see. And then Accountant General makes U-turn. Says £4.2 million Dibori load still being awaited.
Oh, wait a minute now. Hold it.
I'm holding.
First of all, the Attorney General said we already have it. The federal government has it in their FAQ, in their account of government, and then the Accountant General says it's already in.
No, Attorney General says they have it, but they paid it to federal government coffers.
That's why I said that it's in the account of government.
Yep.
The federal government of Nigeria, the Accountant General of the Federation, who ought to have been in receipt of that, says it's been sent to Delta State. And now the same Accountant General
and Delta State yesterday said, well, It hasn't hit our account. We don't have any alerts as you
Told
guys
you.
talked yesterday. So no, we don't.
Now the accountant general is saying the money hasn't
Yes,
come.
actually, we're still waiting for the money. Don't you just love this script?
This is what they call season film.
Oh boy, that's the Tribune. I had to stop there, the Tribune. There's not mic drop situation. That's it.
Malpe.
You know, I'm still perusing through the leadership newspapers. I mean, take a look at this. This is a real gift. It's giving me goosebumps just looking at it. And I think that it's very worthwhile commending the management and staff of leadership for producing this for Nigerian children. I'm just trying to imagine parents seeing this on the newsstands today and buying something home for their children who are old enough to read. And imagine how the children will feel about it. This is really commendable. But hey, let us see though. Let's see if other papers have stories for children. Not seeing much here on the front page of Daily Trust, but who knows? Maybe the stories, I mean, they're always so grim, you know, so sad really, because that's our reality. Really very, very sad. Look at this. 154 feared dead in Kebbi boat mishap. Some will tell you it's a Niger boat mishap. The boat took off from Niger State and was going to Kebbi. So, but here it's described as Kebbi because it happened in Kebbi State. 180 on board. Accident caused by overloading. Local divers on rescue mission. It's devastating. That's from the President, Buhari. You have a number of other stories there. Buhari raises alarm, says insecurity rocking Nigeria's foundation. You have a number of other riders to that story. Enough of talks without action. That's from the Sultan. We're at a crossroads. That's from Lawan. Our country under attacks. It's from Bajabia Mila. Constitution review discordant tunes as governors unveil agenda. Bakers hike bread, biscuits prices by 30% nationwide. That's not how to celebrate Children's Day. They're the largest consumers of biscuits. What are they going to eat? 30%. Maybe they should have done this after Children's Day. But hey, the story is right there. It's on page 17. What can the bakers do if the cost of production has gone up? What other choice do they have? 100 students collapsed after inhaling fumigation chemicals in Ekiti. A very sad, disturbing one. For those who were going to carry out that assignment, didn't they think that children ought not to be in school? Or perhaps it should have been done over the weekend where, you know, the smell of the chemicals would have gone away. But this is what happened. 100 students collapsed after inhaling fumigation chemicals in Ekiti. And then you also see this one, Children's Day. Many questions, few answers on children's rights. So they did give it a special segment on the front page of Daily Trust. Let's leave it there for the paper.
One question that I would want to have for that community where that 100 children inhaled fumigation chemicals and collapses. What HSE activity were carried out before that fumigation happened? What guidance? Then I'm also shocked that the president is shocked that insecurity is rocking our foundation. Well, maybe it was another 8 that said it, I don't know. The Blueprint newspaper this morning is talking about governors speak at zonal hearing on constitution review. Restructuring won't address our problems as a nation, says El Rufai. The paper you reviewed the other time says it was the governor of Plateau State that said it.
Yeah.
Well, he's not alone, obviously. Governor of Kaduna State saying the same
So if that won't, what will?
Well, according to the writers, wants NJC to hands off appointment of states judges. Isn't that restructuring? Okay, anyway, I don't know. Okowa seeks 50% derivation for oil-producing states, says we need new constitution, not amended. Sanwo-Olu asks for special economic status for Lagos, fiscal federalism. Governors Ekweremadu concur on power devolution and state police. Find the story on page 6 of the paper this morning. Right under the picture you see there, Nigeria really under threat, Lawan Bajabiamila admits. And Buhari Lords Reps Summit Initiative, the story is on page 7 of the Blueprint newspaper.
So, but what are they doing about it?
Well, I guess that's part of the things we expect the National Security Summit, as well as the constitutional reviews exercises going on to address, hopefully. Right under the nameplate, NGF, Legislature, Judiciary Autonomy doesn't require Executive Order 10. But then, of course, assumably, but then how come it's not been done? Says governors committed to financial autonomy insists on disbanding Presidential Implementation Committee. That story is continued on page 6 of the paper this morning. Oh yes, you said this is something you said the other time. Returned Ibori 4.2 million pounds loot not yet in our coffers. Delta government.
All right, take a look at Vanguard next. Wave of attacks threatening Nigeria's existence. National Assembly. Buhari, Lawan, Baja, Sultan, Oni speak at House of Reps Security Summit. Insecurity challenging our nationhood, standing against my ambitions. Buhari. Executive should implement outcome of Security Summit. Lawan. This is not time for name calling. House is on fire. Baja. Enough of this talk. Let's work. Sultan. Our foundation wrong. Let's engage youths. Oni. So, but in the meantime, at the bottom straight, no going back on Asaba declaration. Southern governor says it's time for FG to shed excess weight. So they've got that one point blank. But in the meantime, NGF faults Buhari's executive order on judicial autonomy. So that is still going on. Wow. Don't forget to have a look at what's on the back page. Villarreal are Europa Kings, among several others. Well, yeah, you can read Mr. and Mrs. So,
come on, man.
That's Vanguard today, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's not about children, so you see. It's good.
Nigeria News Direct. Constitution review, resource control, state police, fiscal federalism, additional states top agenda. Stories on page 3 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning, and so many other stories that you'll find interesting on the front page of the paper.
Well, look at this. The Daily Times has this one on the front page. Southern, Northern Kaduna, one state split. That's what's on the front page. Mara once again attempt to legalize cannabis. So that's also there as well. And look at those red, juicy tomatoes. And just in case you're wondering, it's a processing factory recently inaugurated by GB Foods in Kebbi State. Something to at least chair. I mean, I feel like going there to pack the tomatoes. They're so red. Maybe it's the photograph, but I don't think so. I guess that's what it is. I mean, it's what we should see more and more of this side of things. You have a number of other stories at the bottom there on investment, recovered loots, EFCC, ICPC, others under scrutiny of lawmakers over recovered loots. And then you also see that story, Ibori cash, okay? There's big controversy as to whether or not to call these monies loot or not. So you see there, Ibori cash. Delta government hasn't received 4.2 million pounds returned from UK. Let's leave it there for the Daily Times.
All right, then, there you go. That ends it with a look at some of the dailies here today. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Well, that's going to be the focus of our discussion this morning, Constitution review and what it entails and whether or not, from the signs that we see, will this process give us the Constitution that all are in dire need of or say that we truly need. Well, we have this morning Mr. Chukwuma Machukwume, who's a senior advocate of Nigeria and former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice of Imo State in our Abuja studios. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily, sir.
Thank you for having me.
well, I'm sure you must have been watching activities across the country and monitoring the different thought patterns of leaders and those who are submitting memoranda to this constitution review hearing. What are your thoughts? Do you think that we will be able to coalesce around, common values at the end of the day with this review process?
Yes, the most important thing is the political will, the listening ear, the ability to understand what are the yearnings of the people. If it is for ritual purposes, just for the sake of it, then we will remain where we are. But if bold steps are taken, and those pressing issues that are affecting the Nigerian polity are put into value, are put into operation, are put into the amendment process, then there will be hope. A situation where there will be no-go area in their mind, and the issue of what and what are not to talk about, then there will be a problem. You see, the issue of amendment must be to improve the polity and nationhood of Nigerian nation.
I find it remarkable that you already said it. This is about ritual. And I think that word is very important.
Yes.
Because what it signifies is that this is not the first time we're doing this.
Excellent.
As a matter of fact, every assembly undertakes an attempt at the amendment of the Constitution. And I say an attempt because oftentimes it doesn't always turn out successfully. On the part of the National Assembly, it might sail through, but sometimes when it gets to the executive quarters, it might just be ignored. So in terms of it not being a ritual, what are the chances that this time around we will be able to produce something that will be agreeable to at least majority of Nigerians?
First and foremost, what are these issues that are burning now? Through federalism, the state police. First of all, let me take a issue of the
True federalism.
True federalism.
So, some people say there's no such thing.
No. There is. In the United States of America, where we borrowed the presidential system.
Is that true federalism?
That's true federalism. That's why you saw a president of a country asking a secretary of a state, of ordinary state, to find me some votes. Because the power resided in the state. True federalism is a situation that brings the best of unity for Nigeria, where the component states are feeling themselves as worthy members of the federation. But a situation where we call ourselves a federation and yet be practicing pseudo-federalism and unitary system, where only the center calls the shots, then there's a problem. I want to recall to you, in 1966, what happened. The Decree 34 of 1966, passed by Ironsi, was the cause of its being overthrown. That was the intelligentsia, the intellectuals in the North describe it. I'll give you the book called Gowan by Professor Eliago, where in page 32 to 33, in chapter 6, he said the changing of the federal system into unitary by Agui University is the root cause of its overthrow. The question now is, if the federal system that was there in 1963, that was changed by Agui University led to its overthrow, why would we, in 2021, be afraid to practice that which we were protected in 1966? Why? Why would unitary system, in the name of pseudo-federalism, now be what we'll be practicing today? It is this going back to the archaic way of doing it that is causing the tension today. The federating units are feeling they are being emasculated, and they are now being robots. And some people are now taking advantage of so-called federalism to occupy and then make nonsense of their lives. And that is why there can be no development. That is why there can be no progress. That is why we exchange initiative for development to initiative for fear. Today it is fear, fear, fear. So, the constitutional amendment, for it to meet what it sought, was to go to what happened in 1963. When from the 3 regional structure, we moved to the 4 regional structure, the Midwestern states. Also, what happened in 1967 by the military when they divided the states, the federation, into 12 states, that created a lot of leeway where the people, now the minorities that were afraid of the majorities, they were carved out. And each person was feeling that it is worth it to belong to the nation.
So the divisions brought about togetherness?
The division brought about togetherness because the minorities that were afraid of the majority tribes were able to take away, and they were able to. Today, that fear is no longer there. Now, if you want
what fear is no longer there? Because let's bring this back now. We know that this is not the first time that we have undertaken a constitution review, and there have been attempts before now to have other meetings, other conferences outside of the Constitution. I mean, outside of the Constitution amendment, Constitution conferences, national conferences, so to speak, which people were hoping would produce, and maybe the outcomes of that will produce new constitutions. Heavily, one of the chief things they always ask for in these national conferences are the creation of new states. So the fact that states have been created since 1967 or so, up until now, I mean, up until we now have 36 states, have still not calmed or quelled the agitation for more states. And some people think that that's as a result of how the Constitution is currently being implemented. The fact that, you know, the states, you know, all come to the Federal Capital Territory for a sharing, rather than the states producing to give to the common purse. They think that if we went back, if we had a way for states to be more productive in such a way that they only remitted taxes, people will see a greater need to come together rather than increasing bureaucracies, which would only, you know, aggravate where we currently are as a people.
I totally agree with you. There's a phenomena. The old order changed, yielding place to new. Yes, the states were created that period. Today, is that the best? No. There's a new thought coming up. It came up in 2005, the Abacha, 1995 Abacha conference, where His Excellency Dr. Alex Ekweme brought up the issue of the zones. You see, this issue of zone came up first in 1974 when Mbadiwe, K.O. Mbadiwe, in a lecture to the Economic Society of University of Nigeria, Nsukka, made a proposal for 5 zones, and that the presidency should be rotated around that. Now in 1995, Dr. Alex Ekweme made a proposal for 8 zones. It tuned down to 6. What should be going on now are these 6 zones should now be the bedrock of the federation. The states, because the states have been so tinily done and they are not encouraged to go into productive activity, they are now just encouraged to come to Abuja, as you rightly said, come to Abuja every month and pick some money. This time around, it is no longer picking some money, but picking loans. Picking loans. Because the federation we are running is not the one that encourages everybody to go home and work. So, the new constitution amendment must move towards a situation where these states that are in these zones will come together. We still be their states, but the zones becomes the operating point where these zones can have the power to organize themselves, because these zones are so done that they are homogeneous, at least in terms of thinking, in terms of cultural look, in terms of attitude. So, and then the power now resides around that column and not in the federation the way we have, where we now have a suffocating exclusive list. The zones now need to form the bedrock of the federating unit. The states inside them still remaining the way they are. We need to advance it gradually. So, why the 1967 creation of the states did its own wonders, today, the new phenomena is these states must remain as states, but in their zones becomes the federating bodies to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the powers of the federal government must be watered down. The power there will be devolution of power. Not just because, look at what happened in 1960 to 1963 or 1960 to 1967. The regions managed themselves. And in the Western Nigeria, you were able to see the free education everywhere. And the state moved fast. The Eastern region, the palm oil, not even oil, the ordinary palm oil, the state moved fast. In the north, because they were allowed to be themselves, the state moved with granite oil, granite, the pyramid, the granite pyramid. Why are we living this? Why are we living these that have brought a better development, that have enabled the North without loan to build one of the best universities in Africa? Why are we living that phenomena? Where are we living it to a situation you just sit and be talking of oil, and then how you can just take oil and then and that's all. Well, so the amendment, in order to meet the need, this amendment is the center of unity of Nigeria. Amend because that must be continuously amended in order to improve the polity. We have seen it all now.
How big do you think the issue of fiscal federalism is? How much at the center of this is fiscal federalism in relation to all the other issues? Because for a number of people, they say, yes, before now, the issue was fiscal federalism. The fact that they wanted all the states to be more productive, own their resources and, remit something to the center. But today, it looks like the issue of security is now at the front burner. It's a bigger issue than even fiscal federalism. But do you think that they are related, and do you think that one has caused the other? Exactly. What have been the urge of the center? The urge of the center is amassing and intimidating the federating states. So, and this issue of, which I have earlier analyzed, of sitting to expect funds from the oil and not doing anything other than that is leading to a situation where the security issue, I think right now, is being used as something else. It looks like it's no longer just occurring on its own. It looks like it's now being in a way where the state looks the other way, contrary to what the Constitution provides in Section 11, in Section 14, 1 and 2, which said that security and of the people are the most important aspect of government. Now, what are we saying?
What we're seeing is that Nigerians are now being caught like grasses. This is because the Constitution is not being obeyed. We just use the Constitution.
The current Constitution is not being obeyed.
Very well. Yes.
So if the
current Constitution
if
is not
the current Constitution is not even being obeyed, and there are a number of lawyers who say, look, our problem is not the Constitution. Our problem is the fact that we haven't even obeyed what is inside this Constitution.
No.
How much more when we now have a new Constitution?
No. The two things are different.
Okay.
One, whatever you have, no matter how bad or not proper or not comprehensive it is it being obeyed? That's one. Not that it cannot be improved upon. The amendment is to improve it. There's section 12, there's section 9 that calls for amendment is for improvement. But as it is now, is it the one that is not even very comprehensive? Is it being obeyed? I cite you. Section 14, subsection 3 of the Constitution is talking about federal character. Federal character is the needle, is the nucleus of unity of Nigeria. Because if you look at the section, it tells you federal character for the unity of Nigeria. Federal character for the loyalty of Nigerians.
Indeed. So I was going to take you back.
So
yes.
Again, federal character comes up again in section 217 of the Constitution that says appointment of the security apparatus of Nigeria must be loyal to the federal character. Appointment of the security apparatus. The Constitution is not done today. The Constitution happened there before the current regime came in. So that section was not inserted against this present administration. It happened there, which said it must be any appointment in the security apparatus must to reflect the federal character. Is it being obeyed? If it's not being obeyed, it means that even the small bad one we have in our hand is not being obeyed. And so, it does not mean that we cannot also improve on it. We must continue to go towards improving, and then all these lapses being blocked.
Well, just before I send this to Lagos now, I want to quickly avert your mind to the fact that we had a number of meetings even before this public hearing on constitution amendment. Excuse me, the security situation in the country got so bad that we saw a number of governors meeting not just in their regions, but also meeting as a whole. I mean, without prejudice to the Nigerian Governors Forum, we saw meetings of northern governors, we've seen meetings of southern governors. The meeting of southern governors caused quite a ripple because they mentioned some of these issues which you brought to the fore, this issue of federal character. And at the heart of it, one of the very first things that they talked about is that open grazing be banned, and they mentioned a number of other things. For instance, they recommended that federal government should support willing states to develop alternative and modern livestock management systems. They agreed that the progress of the nation requires that urgent and bold steps be taken to restructure the Nigerian Federation, leading to the evolution of state police. And they also wanted a review of the revenue allocation formula. So you have a number of these agitations happening simultaneously with the constitution amendment. You also had a meeting yesterday, conference convoked by the House of Representatives on national security. So we have all of these things coming up with the communiques alongside an expectation we have from the Constitution. Now, if we're able to implement some of the recommendations being thrown up by these conferences, do you really think that a lot of Nigerians will care whether or not we have a new constitution or not?
I think they will care because actually the open grazing phenomena is not the only issue, as that now it is the most suffocating one, I agree. But also, The restructuring is not, yes. Also, the issue of federal character and all the rest of them. These are burning issues. We are having a lot of conferences and all that, but the next question is, how about implementation? How about implementation?
That's why I asked.
The citizens governors of the southern states, their bold initiative is to save the polity of the Nigerian nation. Because a situation where problems are coming up, we sit on it as if it doesn't matter. It will not do this polity any good. Life is dynamic. The constitution should be dynamic. It must accommodate new idiosyncrasies coming up. In the United States of America, how many constitutional amendments have they gone through? More than what we have gone through now. And theirs is that each of the issues coming up are trashed, straight to the point. Ours, the first alteration we have made to the Constitution of 1999 was just cosmetic. The second one was also cosmetic. The third one actually said, if you have been in government, if you are sworn in, and then you are removed and you come back, you continue with that tenure, all day well and good. But then, has it scratched the core problem facing us? The core problem facing us is ensuring that federalism as it is practiced in Nigeria. Federalism that will encourage everyone to go and work, not to sit and try to use hegemony against other. Why would you not be contented in your state and be happy there? Why? What kind of federalism that?
Something that really stands out for me is the fact that you keep talking about implementation. The fact that, what we have right now, we haven't implemented. You have also made reference to the fact that, yes, we have all of these conferences and, plenty of talk, but the question is, what action will be taken? In your opinion, because, after the governor sat and came up with their 10-point communique, there was also some response from the presidency to the agitations of the governors, to the point, to the effect that they should not run away from the hard issues. And for some people, they believe that the governors also have sufficient powers in their hands to do what needs to be done in such a way that they might not exactly need to come to the federal government. What are your thoughts on that? There have been quite some controversial comments as well, but a number of people have said the governors themselves have not exactly practiced the autonomy which they desire from the federal government.
I do totally agree with you. If you look at Section 11, subsection 1, it talks about the National Assembly passing some laws for the public security. Subsection 2 of it said, notwithstanding, the State Assembly are not precluded.
So I'm going to I'll let you finish the point when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Kuma Machuku Umei, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Imo State, is still with us here in our Abuja studios. And just before we went on break, you were answering the question as to what the governors have done with the powers that they currently have.
I think some of the governors are actually utilizing, or some to say somehow, utilizing the powers that they should have. Section 11, subsection 2.
When you say some of the governors, in what area? When you look at the fact that, look at what happened in Lagos, the protest that greeted some of the open hearing on the Constitution Amendment by protest. Not that they blocked the place or anything, but let their grievances known. And a lot of them bordered very strongly on autonomy, local government autonomy, and as you're aware, Justin is still very much on strike, asking for judiciary autonomy.
Yes. All this, there are a lot, the problems are multifarious. So they must come in stream and they will be solved one way or the other. But I want to point out to you the wonderful thing that had just happened in Lagos State. The House of Assembly passing the Crime Commission, where what is happening in the federal can be replicated in the state. That's good. That's proper. We cannot continue to emasculate everything to the center. The state has the right to prosecute crime. The state crime, all the state laws, if any person offends it, the state will prosecute. If you steal money in the state, you can also be tried there. The idea of the states staying like this and the so-called Economic Crime Commission doing everything is wrong. That's one of the things I regretted as a former Attorney General. I did not do it while I was in office. There must be true federalism.
Why didn't you do it?
Were
you hampered by your principal?
No.
Did you think your principal would not be happy with it?
No. My principal was gallant enough to have even suggested it, but maybe time. I didn't stay long, but that's not the issue now. The most important thing is that Lagos State has set a very good example. So, having said that, being chief security officer of the state, what the southern governors did is what they ought to have done. And so they have done it well. Anything talking about not being constitutional and this thing seems to be begging the issue. Take for instance, if you say that open grazing is banning it is against the Constitution, are you now saying that the armed robber that kills and takes his victims' property should be allowed because the Constitution said right to property? Are you saying that? Are you saying because right of movement includes somebody walking into your bedroom and staying because that's right to movement? Are you now saying that freedom of assembly includes the army assembling to overthrow a state? Is that? We cannot look at this law as if there is no limit. Particularly, look at section 45, 1 and 2. What did he say? That these rights of movement as outlined from section 35 to 36 to all that has a limit. There's a limit. So, and you see, the open grazing has been an issue that came far long in the 60s when a judge in Abeokuta made a judgment saying the idea of open grazing in the 60s, the idea of open grazing is against natural justice. There's a judgment of court in Abeokuta which has not been appealed against, which has been there. If open grazing received a knock in the 60s, is it today it will receive blessing? So you see, the state must allow to move up. The certain governors made it right. The willing states should be allowed to do
open grazing. Or ranch, so to speak.
Yes.
Let me quickly take this to Lagos now, even though, the question I was asking is whether or not the governors have done what they ought to do within their powers, especially
they did. Yes, they did.
When you look at the question of autonomy for local governments and autonomy for the judiciary, even the state houses of assembly, a lot of them are not particularly autonomous or independent, so to speak. And these are things that are prescribed by the Constitution.
You see, that is why I think I've made a comment somewhere that this issue of the executive order 10 is not necessary. If you look at section 84, 84 has said Once the National Assembly passes a budget, the budget for the judiciary moves straight to the first line charge. It's called first line charge from the Consolidated Federation Fund. Consolidated Federation Fund. It moves in there. The same thing happens in Section 221 or so of the states. Once the House of Assembly passes the budget of the state, the fund belonging to the judiciary and that of House of Assembly moves straight as first line charge. So, failure to obey it is not the same thing as saying the law is not there.
Okay. So let's quickly take this conversation to Lagos now.
Well, there are so many things that you have said to that. You know, we're having our own national conference here just to make sense of them. But, you know, it's very interesting that you drew attention to a judgment in 1960 about open grazing. And it would seem like it's a new phenomenon now, as opposed to the fact that it's something that was a problem as far back as the 60s. And it would look like, I mean, one then wonders what the brouhaha is now, knowing that there is a law, there is a precedent. And then I'm wondering what you make, first of all of the cacophony of noises, if I can use the term, on open grazing now. I mean, coming from senior advocates of Nigeria, coming from the highest levels of government at the federal level and the different regions.
I think that some of these misguided views are because we are having much loyalty to nepotism. We're not having loyalty to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria places life, security of life above any other thing. A situation where pregnant woman, nursing mother, old and the children are cut off because are killed and cut like grasses just for the sake of open grazing, I think it falls short of a crime to the Constitution. And those who take away their eyes as if this cutting of Nigeria as grasses doesn't mean anything, I think they have a lot to their conscience. So, bringing up the issue of open grazing, one, is outdated. Nigeria cannot talk about the number of cows they have as the number of cows they have in the United States of America. Over there, do you see cows moving all over the place? It doesn't. There are special places designated for it. Agriculture should not be should not concern the federal government. The states should be able to husband themselves about agriculture. Those who want open ranch should have it there. And all these wonderful cows should be taken over to those places so that you see we have the best of the time. But a situation where citizens are uprooted from their ancestral land and pushed into IDB camps seem to make us look subhumans. And so, proponents of open grazing must appreciate time is changing. The Constitution prefers the people to be alive than being cut like grasses. The Constitution appreciates that ranches can be built, and state government should do that, and not federal government. It's not their listing. And in the first place, how do you look at the situation? The German has never carried arm to Lake Chad or Jeba in order to fish. The TV man has never carried AK-47 to Sokoto in order to do his farming. The spare parts seller has never carried a gun to anywhere in order to practice his trade. Why would a particular trade be a situation where killing of human beings will be the only way to practice that trade? Any person who supports that idea, any person who takes steps to propagate that idea, either in forms of advice, can only be called what they call vasan.
All right, Mr. May,
segregating.
If I could just jump in and ask you, I mean, there's just so many things that have to be, that were first of all raised in terms of the recommendations by the Southern governors, and then with this ongoing alteration of the 1999 Constitution, where something, they want an entirely new document, that this wouldn't suffice. But if I could look at it from that perspective of something you did reference while you were making your previous points about Executive Order 10, which the governors think that the president overreached himself with that. You know, but then could you give us, how should this, for instance, devolution of power, what structure or what format, when it has to do with the judiciary? Because there are those who think, yes, the governors say, look, we don't have a problem with this, we're going to implement this. But the executive order was an attempt to ensure that those things are done. So if you say they overreached themselves, if you say it was out of place to come up with the Executive Order 10, what then is the best way to ensure judicial autonomy without this Executive Order 10?
Excellent. First and foremost, the Executive Order 10 came into place when? Did it solve the problem? Why did you strike now? So let us put it in the proper perspective. The Executive Order 10 is contrary to the spirit of federalism. So the Constitution happened there. What about this problem? Section 14 is there for federal character. Is it being obeyed? Section 217 is there for federal character in appointment of the security apparatus. Is it being obeyed? Section 219 of the Constitution that talks about ensuring that there is a body to make sure that the federal character is reflected in everything that has to do with security apparatus of the country. Is it being obeyed? We must first of all obey our own before asking others to obey their own. That's one. Second one is this. The Constitution is there for the governors to obey. Had it been that the federal government was obeying its own aspects, I think there could be something that will send a ripple. One, I believe that the courts have also a role to play here. When the budget is passed, and the governor has security vote, and keeps it there, and wants to draw on it, and has the executive budget, and wants to draw on it, but does not want to obey the Constitution by passing the money straight to the court, the court should be able to declare that budget a nullity. The court also have a role to play.
Just one moment.
They should be able to face the government.
Just a moment, Mr. May. There's something you said earlier, and I'm interested in how you think we should go about it. On the one hand, you said Executive Order 10 wasn't necessary because the Constitution was clear. But then, in response to Chamberlain's questions now, you said that there are certain elements, critical elements of the Constitution that is not being obeyed. So the question is, who is supposed to compel the enforcement of the Constitution?
Yes. The Attorney Generals, the Attorney Generals and the civil societies. First,
Oh, Mr.
A
Omer,
situation where the leader sets
just a
example
moment.
of disobedience to the...
You know, yes, you know that as an Attorney General of the Federation, as a State Attorney General at the time, could you in any way have been able to compel your principal to comply with the Constitution, for instance, in the consideration of the local government administration?
Of course, yes, I did. I did. While Attorney General of the state, I do not want to bring myself into play into this matter now. But then, while Attorney General of my state, there was a time I made a trip, and then there was this strike in my state by the Jison branch, where they talked about where the issue of this financial autonomy came up. What did I do? I ran back to the states. I sat down with them. I asked them to draw up an agreement. They did it, and I signed it immediately and said, from today, financial autonomy of the judiciary is in place. I did it as Attorney General. I did it binding the executive because I'm part of the executive. So what happened later and all that may be a different story altogether.
Okay, okay, just one more thing here because we're pressed for time. Now, when you say we lack the political will, both perhaps at the federal and state level, to implement certain provisions of the Constitution and obey them in that respect, what amount of amendment or alteration or new Constitution will ensure that this same question of lack of political will never pops up?
A situation where we just sit down and our leader become feudal lords. This is where we are landing. A situation where we don't ask our leaders to give account of what they're doing. When the breaches in the Section 14 was going on, what did we do? So Nigerians ought to also sit up to ask their leaders to not to be feudal leaders, not to be lords, whom we must prostrate before in order for them to beg them to do what the Constitution asks them to do. A governor that uses the Constitution to be elected, but refuses to obey part of the constitutional provision is worthy of being impeached. Is worthy of the court nullifying the budget because the budget is not obeying the constitutional provision. We thank the Johnson for what the wonderful work they're doing. So we look forward to a better situation, but we cannot continue to sit complacently and expect a better future. There's need for everyone to be concerned and ask the leader. There's this young lady, Yusuf or so, I said sometimes. He said, the presidency is my agent. I am the master. I am the taxpayer. I am the elector. I was wondering, I was just seeing how this young lady was analyzing the situation. A situation where we convert our leaders as masters, who, for anything, we must go cap in hand, kneeling down to beg for our existence. It will make our country a laughingstock.
So how optimistic are you then that this time around we will get it right with the Constitution Amendment?
There is something about Nigerians. Mm-hmm. In my book, Kedi Mboku, The Sentinel of Justice, I made an analysis. Nigeria has always moved to a precipice. Nigeria has always moved to a precipice. Tipping point. Mm-hmm. But that gum that makes Nigeria has always come up to save it.
So you believe that this time around, the gum will come up again?
This time around, and in the near future, these changes will come. Because no one can continue to use terrorism, fear, as instrument of governance. A situation where the government sits complacently and terrorists are overtaken. One, you start suspecting, are they instruments for a particular purpose? Because the Constitution said in Section 11, safety of lives is the most paramount duty of the state, of the government. So, a government that fails in it is a government that is attracting questions. Why?
Well, I think that definitely provides all of us food for thought. We hope that the conversation will continue, because we know that, yeah, this is just the hearing for the Senate. We know that of the House of Reps is going to happen sometime in June. Do you think that there will be variations, though? I mean, if we have come out with this much gusto for the Senate, do you think that we'll be coming out with as much gusto in June, when the House of Reps also does its own public hearing?
Okay, maybe the ones forgotten now in the hearing of the Senate may come up that time.
Yeah, don't you think it should just done it together, though?
I believe. In the new
I'm just asking.
In the new constitution that is being proposed.
A new constitution, or is it
yes,
proposed, or the one that's been amended?
Something of that. Oh, you see, this thing is dynamic. The amendments can continue where the amendment fails. Maybe there could be other arrangements to make sure that this polity is stabilized.
Are you seeing something that we're not seeing yet? Are you seeing some? I don't know. I'm just asking you if you're privy to some information we don't know yet.
Okay. The most important thing is, I'm thinking, in line with what you said, some of these things are duplication. But then, there's already a House of Representatives, there's already the Senate. So, they have their duties to do. But I think that some of these things, we can save ourselves some of these hassles, where we can have, you can see what everybody is pointing to. 1963 Constitution. 1963 Constitution is a good market that sells itself. So, if you go to the 1963 Constitution, probably there could be a situation where you have unicameral chamber here.
Okay.
And at that stage, some of these things will not be occurring. And again, there will be a situation where everybody, there's every need for everyone to be eager to belong to Nigeria.
Okay, I think it's a fine place to leave it. We have to thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Chukwuma Machukwume is a senior advocate of Nigeria and also a former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Imo State. Well, that's what we'll leave you for this segment. Sunrise Daily will be back shortly. Please stay with us. Well, that summit was supposed to have started on Monday, but was shifted in honor of the late Chief of Army Staff who died in a fatal plane crash that also saw the death of some other senior military officers and as well as the crew who were conveying them to Kaduna. But nonetheless, it started now, and you can already hear some of what was said at that conference yesterday. The Sultan seemed to be tired of talk. The Oni of Ife was saying, well, it's not very safe in the villages these days, yet the traditional rulers are, forced to be there. For the Senate President, you also heard his own submissions as well as the Speaker giving reasons as to why the conference was needed in the very first instance. But this morning, we are joined by Honorable Bamidele Salam, who is a member of the Special Committee on National Security. Well, let me quickly get this, Honorable. Is the National Security, is it this conference you're holding, or there is another committee in the House which is on national security?
Yeah, the House has a number of committees that deal with different aspects of national security.
Indeed.
But this one is a special committee to organize the summit and to collate all the views and recommendations for both executive and legislative action. So this is a special committee of 47 members, headed by Mr. Speaker himself, the Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, with the Deputy Speaker as the Vice Chairman of that committee, and then all the principal officers of the House, and selected members of the House. So we have 47 in all who are members of this special committee on national security.
So on that note, I say welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much.
How was it putting this particular conference together? Because I must imagine that the security challenges too, where maybe at the heart of your mind, and also when you look at the fact that constitutional review public hearing was also going to start that same yesterday. And I'm sure you also had to put into consideration the fact that maybe some of your members would have wanted to hear what was being said there.
Absolutely.
But how were you able to eventually decide that this is what you're going to do and you're going to host it at the NIA, which is also quite significant?
Yeah, you agree with me that there's absolutely, perhaps no more important issue today in Nigeria than the issue of security. In any way, the Nigerian Constitution itself says that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. So, and in the last 2 years of our legislative action in the 9th House of Representatives, security has happened to occupy more than 60% of the issues that we bring up in terms of motions and bills and other forms of engagement. And again, it is the topical issue today in every part of the country. And so, in the month of March, the House decided that rather than, having these bit of motions and bills and other engagement here and there, why don't we convey a summit which will be all-encompassing and give us a more holistic view of what the issues are, and then, begin the implementation at all levels. So we decided that whatever we need to put aside to focus on this is worth it. In fact, yesterday, the ECOWAS Parliament were going to start its sitting. The Deputy Speaker, for example, is the first Deputy Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament. He has to abandon that to come for, the summit. The Speaker himself had a lot of other engagement. So this shows that we put this on the front burner of our legislative activities, especially in this, 5 days that we're going to be having the summit. And I think it is worthwhile, even from the opening ceremony yesterday, from the input we had, from the traditional rulers, from the service chiefs, from the president himself, the speech that the president delivered through the secretary to the government of the federation, the speech of the Senate president, and of course the technical session that held behind closed doors, all show us that indeed it is worthwhile to dedicate these 5 days to discussing national security and trying to evolve new and better ways. We have been on this for quite a while. The Boko Haram started 2008 or 2009, thereabout. We've been fighting this war. We have not won the war.
What do you think? Yeah. What do you think will be coming out of this conference that will not be, or that you will not ordinarily be able to bring out from just the sit-ins of the House of Representatives and the oversight of its standing committees on security?
Okay, fantastic. You see, security is a very complex issue, and it is also an evolving issue. There are aspects of our security challenges that in the last, 5 years ago, no one could imagine, the extent to which they have gone today. And the reasons or the causes of most of these challenges are myriad. They are different kinds of reasons, and some of those reasons are either evolving or getting deeper. Now, by engaging stakeholders and experts, we have a better understanding of some of the non-kinetic measures that can be put in to tackle some of these problems. His Eminence, the Sultan, when he was speaking yesterday, spoke about the fact that, we have had a lot of talk and talk and talk. Yeah, very true. But again, that's what democracy is all about. Democracy is about engagement, is about talking, is about communication. And there is no island of knowledge anywhere. As members of the National Assembly, we have initiated some measures, for example, on police reform. But I want to tell you, Maobe, by the time we listened to some of the expert position yesterday, we had new insight into some other things that needed to be done. To the fact that Nigeria today, most of the security engagement which our armed forces are involved with are ordinarily duties of the police.
Everybody knows that.
But we have got to a stage where our police is no longer able to cope with those challenges. So why? Is it the question of personnel? Is it about training? Is it about equipment? Is it about the orientation of the public to police? Is it about the structure of the police?
So what new insight did you receive on that?
Oh, yeah, well, because again, we are holding these sessions behind closed doors, it may not be possible to disclose all the input we are getting, on the media. But let me put this, for example, in perspective. There have been calls for state police. There have been calls for a decentralized policing system. Now, the questions that will come up is, to what extent do we decentralize our policing? In some countries of the world, even local government run the police system. Traditional institutions have a role in the policing system. How do we ensure that we have our early warning system incorporated into our policing system? These are some of the issues that we didn't look at in a more detailed manner before now. And one of the presenters came yesterday and dealt extensively on the issue of the early warning system, the intelligence gathering, and the emerging youth bulge that we have in the country today. We have a very large number of youthful population that are growing up and are faced with the pressure of economic survival, social integration, lack of inclusiveness in government, what they perceive as lack of inclusiveness in government. In fact, His Imperial Majesty, the Oni of Ife, raised a poster yesterday asking, okay, we're having this summit. What percentage of participants in this summit is a representation of the greater number of our demographic? That is the youth. People 35, 40, and below. And everybody was like, oh, that's true. Why? Because the degree of their involvement, even in the political process, is one of the major challenges we have as a nation. So where people feel that they have no voice, they have no form of involvement, there is a likelihood of them resorting to some forms of violence, which will eventually be a threat even to the general firmament of our democracy. So these are some of the issues that are coming up. And it's a 5-day event. We're continuing today, and I'm sure many others will come up. By now, we have received over 200 memoranda from the public. There was a publication that was put out early in May calling for memoranda from stakeholders, the civil society, student groups, youth groups, women groups, and quite a number of individuals and organizations have sent in their memoranda, over 200 of that, which we're going to be
just
considering.
for this security
summit.
summit.
Yes, absolutely. That shows you the magnitude of the problem on our hand and the sensitization of the public. If you ask any Nigerian today, what is our number one problem that we need to tackle? It will be security. Because without security, no other thing flows.
I'm just wondering how all of this is going to be reconciled, considering the fact that the Constitution Amendment is currently ongoing, which you're also very involved in as the House of Representatives. And I'm sure that you've also received lots of memoranda on that as well.
Absolutely.
How are you going to be able to reconcile you've also seen the meetings of the governors of the South. Before now, I think we saw meetings of the governors of the North as well, and all of them issuing their communiques.
Oh, yeah.
How are you going to, because all of these things they believe are the solutions to the security situation which we're currently facing. How do you think that at the end of the day, the House of Representatives, because some people would have said that maybe you should have hosted this in conjunction with the Senate
the security summit?
Yes, to achieve more results, because they're wondering how it is that the House of Representatives single-handedly hopes to change the tide with regards to security.
Well, the framers of our Constitution actually have at the back of their mind the need to broaden input and participation when they're designing the bicameral legislature. The Senate is a separate arm of the legislature, just like the House of Representatives. And don't forget, before now, there had been resolutions passed by both houses at different times, and most of those resolutions center around the same thing: calling the president to declare a state of emergency, calling for the sack of service chiefs, calling for an overhaul of the security architecture, and so many other measures that that were suggested. But in the wisdom of the House, as the body that has the greater number of the two, and has the connection to the larger number of our constituents, 360 members representing 360 federal constituencies, we believe that we have an opportunity to serve as the eye and the ear of the public on this issue. And now let me say this: there is no the solution to what we have on hand. There's no this solution. There are quite a number of options that are on the table. As it is in every other part of the world where they have issues like this, you will have people coming up, with suggestions or with demand, just like the southern governors did, the northern governors did. And if you consider the resolutions of the two blocks of the Governors Forum, you will find a lot of similarities in them. Now, some of these require that we tinker with the present laws. They require that we either, amend some of our laws or, enact new ones entirely.
The point is
some of
that
them
the
also
House,
require...
Indeed. The point is that the House of Representatives will still require concurrence with the Senate.
Oh, absolutely. And we've been having that. There's no issue. You could see the Senate President, coming to attend the summit yesterday. There is absolutely no issue with that. Even when we pass our laws, when we pass any bill, you require concurrence. And in almost 100% of the cases, you have not had a situation where one house differs from the other, because we always have a conference.
Don't you think it will make the process faster? That's what I'm saying.
No, absolutely.
If you're both on the same page and had achieved the results together.
We are on the same page in terms of intent. We may not be on the same page in terms of the modus operandi, and that happens, in every other clime where you have a bicameral legislature. But the most important thing is that we are both set to address the problem, and we're going to address the problem holistically in conjunction with the executive. Don't forget, some of these things that we're also going to do, the speaker before this summit had to seek the buy-in of Mr. President. Mr. President is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Whatever we will decide on that needs executive actions will have to be agreed to by the president and his cabinet. And he has agreed that whatever recommendations we bring out of here that needs executive actions will be acted upon by him and his cabinet.
Let's quickly flip this to Lagos now for questions from our colleagues. Chad.
Yeah, but, these were some of the things that were said about some of the previous laws that were passed that were not assented to by the president. So what happens in the event that, the National Assembly finishes this and the president doesn't assent to it?
Well, we have a hope that Mr. President will live by the commitment he has given. The Speaker and the leadership of the House met with him, and he did give them a commitment that he was going to be favorably disposed to the outcome of this engagement. And these are, Mr. President was elected by Nigerians, and we're bringing in, critical stakeholders in the Nigerian project to come and deliberate on security. I'm not sure that he will sit and, say whatever they bring up is meaningless. So I don't want to assume that the president will not take the necessary action, because he himself, from the speech that the SGF delivered on his behalf yesterday, identified this as the most important issue to be confronted today and asked that all stakeholders in the Nigerian project should be involved in whatever we're doing. So whatever we bring up for the president, I want to believe very strongly that he will act in accordance with the commitment he has given before we convene this summit.
Well, you say you have hope, but everyone knows that hope is not a strategy. But, how does this security summit, because there are people who think this is not our immediate challenge or problem. How is this going to address, why are they not arresting the foreign herdsmen who are killing people almost on a regular basis? How does this address it?
Well, you see, I don't want to oversimplify, some of these issues. Now, if we have specific cases of a failure of the policing system, it is a problem that has to do with the operations of the powers given by the law to the Inspector General of Police, and he can be called to account on those ones. If there are cases of people who have been found to perpetrate crime and are working freely in the society, the public has to hold, and of course the legislature will hold the Inspector General of Police accountable to that. So if anybody has a specific instance of such happening and bring that to the notice of the House, we have a committee on police which will definitely act on that. We have a public petition committee that will hold on that. But what I'm saying is that the problem we are faced with is far beyond all those. The problem we are faced with is a situation where today in Nigeria, from just a part of the country which have been bedeviled with the Boko Haram insurgency a few years ago, we have the problems of insecurity spreading virtually everywhere in the country. You have attack on public buildings and institutions in the southeastern part of the country. You can't move from one state or the other in the southwestern part of the country today without having a security cover. You have a situation where farmers can no longer go to their farms in the north central, leading to a major challenge in food security, which is a very important component of security. Now, these are issues that are, broader in perspective, and needing us to sit down as an institution and facing them, frontally. If we don't put this on the front burner of our discourse as we are doing today, I'm sorry, I don't know what will result in what Nigeria, where Nigeria will be in another 4 or 5 years if it continues this way.
Well, Honorable, if you ask me from the from the few comments that you have made now, I could come up with 5 questions, for you, but I just have one, which will come up right after this break. Stay with us. Thank you for joining us. Well, Honorable, just something curious that you said earlier when responding to a question from Okwe was that, you referenced what the Oni of Ife said as a traditional ruler, that 70% of Nigeria's population is not represented at the summit that he attended with so many political leaders. And the question that came to my mind was, how come they were not invited?
Okay, now the summit has different layers. The first layer has to do with asking for and receiving memoranda from the public. And I want to tell you, of the over 200 memoranda submitted, we have quite a number of them from our youthful population, from youth organizations, from NGOs that are youth-based. Now, what the ONI was making a reference to was the actual, a session of discussion, and it was just for yesterday. We have a 5-day program for the summit, and I want to tell you that we have some of the experts and the stakeholders who are coming to address the summit, who have, from the demographic that we call the youthful, population. Between now and Saturday, he was actually making a reference to the opening ceremony, where we had also to control the number of people in the hall due to the COVID-19 protocols and what have you. But like I said, we have had input, over 200 of that, and many of those inputs are from youth-based organizations.
Well, we'll see whether or not they will eventually, if that is how you also take into consideration the opinion of the youth, we'll see how it eventually will materialize into, meeting the aspirations and their yearnings. Well, we have to thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Early this morning, Honorable Bamidele Salam, who is a member of the Special Committee on National Security, putting together this conference being organized by the
Summits.
The summit. What's the difference? I'm just curious.
Yeah, we have had too many conferences. This one is more technical than just having a jamboree of speakers. So we prefer to use the nomenclature summit so that it shows the depth we're going on it.
Okay, so putting together this summit by the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Today this morning. As always, we would always like to take your feedback, and we're seeing a few of them here. Honorable Ademola Alalade has this to say on the Security Summit. He says, National Security Summit is a fantastic, but will definitely, I guess it means it's a fantastic idea, or is fantastic, but will definitely not yield any result if government is not determined to expend money in tackling the root causes of the security challenges facing the country. Money spent on the summit can be diverted towards securing lives. That's from Honorable Ademola Alalade.
Well, this one is from Amos Tom. Says, we want true federalism where the state will have control over its resources. But the same states have refused to hold free, fair and credible elections at or to the local government level. Will the states agree to a merger?
When someone wants to go elsewhere. Look at this one from Muiz Bakar. He says, talking about true federalism. While I agree with true federalism, in parentheses, a lot needs to be done by state governments to assure the residents that they will act in their best interest. Today, we can easily ask how much IGR and FAC each state gets. Do we have commensurate development in it?
And Olajide Precious has this one. He talked about 1999 Constitution Review exercise. He says the Constitution Review will be a waste of time until there's a broken wings of connection, okay, by our political elites who, through an open opportunity given to them, siphon every job employment that comes to their table, okay, until we've broken the wings of connection, okay. I see what the point is. That's Olajide's take on the matter.
James Agba says, making the 6 geopolitical zones the federating units, each with a zonal assembly as against the present 36 state assemblies and 2 federal legislative assemblies, will greatly enhance our political development. Well, that's James.
This is from Victor. He says, one cannot patch a foundation. You make a new one. Constitution amendment is just patchwork. The people know the right thing, but they don't have the mind to do it.
So what if we ask for it this time? Malwe?
Well, Yomi says this one, says, there is no failure for a man whose spirit is unconquered, no matter how late they are or how many and repeated his failures. Success is still possible. I'm urging all Nigerians to give the 1999 Constitution Review necessary support for posterity's sake. He says, great idea. Well, what a way to end it when you talk about posterity. Today is Children's Day, and I think that is a fine place to leave it. It's not a public holiday. It's only a public holiday for the children. I think that as much as possible, we need to spare a thought today for the children in our communities and see what we can do to make them smile, especially those who are orphaned and those who have no one to care for them. Thank you so much for watching this morning. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Just wondering, what if they bring the youths in that summit and they say, we want a new constitution? What happens?
That's a $1 million question, or a $1 billion question. Amaya Makide, have a wonderful day and please remain safe.
I'm Chamberlain, so we'll see you tomorrow.